young. This mare has had the opportunity to show more before, so she's won at county level shows, and she was a mare champion at the Irish Draught Horse Society of GB breed show in 2022. She is a Class 1 mare. So the Irish Draught, first right off the bat, is kind of a bigger connie. You still want the short shins, you want plenty of bone, a good shoulder, a nice neck in front of you, a pretty head, good room in the throat latch. There's different types. This mare is not super long in the back. Knees and hocks, big and low to the ground, straight active movement.
So history-wise.
The breed developed kind of the same way as the Connemara pony did. It was developed in Ireland, bred by the Irish farmers. You know, we farm here on like big tracts of land. In Ireland, farms were smaller. So you'd have one horse that would say, you know, plow an acre or two fields, take the family to church in the trap on Sunday, and let the farmer have a day's hunting on the Saturday. So again, they're meant to be athletic types, hardy types, thrifty types, level-headed, fifth leg, just kind of an ATV type of horse.
An easy keeper and obviously
good mums.
Yeah, good mums and so on and so on. One of the sayings that I love in Ireland, and certainly applies to the mares, is they should have a face like an angel, and I have to say, an arse like a cook. That's the way I've heard a lot of the people explain them. I mean, I think she's a good example of that. She is a good, strong horse. You could imagine this out on the Huntingfield. Sarah's, at this moment in time, just started out with dressage with her. She's done a bit of everything. She's been out hunting. Sarah will start out right now with dressage with her, correct? That's the plan.
It's a fabulous shoulder.
Great shoulder. A bit more about the mare, by the way.
What do you mean a bit more about the mare?
Carry on.
I don't know what you mean a bit more about the mare. Oh, one thing I should know about Irish horses. So the Irish obviously have the stud book, so they register all of our horses, and the Irish inspect them, and they train other people in other countries to inspect them. The one thing the Irish really love is big ears. They say that big ears denotes a brave horse. So in our Irish drafts, we always want big ears, and they really tend to have big ears. And the Irish have all these crazy sayings about if a horse is built this way, it means that, and big ears, brave horse is something that they really bang on about, and it is very true. Irish draughts are meant to have excellent feet. All of the Irish draughts here have excellent feet, really well balanced, hardy. She happens to be shod because some of the footing she works on is abrasive, but she's barefoot behind, the other boy's barefoot. Yeah, I can show you again. You know, we measure bone around here. We measure this. This is what we mean when we measure bone. This mare has 9 inches of bone. She's not quite 16 hands. But we want short cannons here. Pasterns proportionate to the shoulder. She's not super long in the back. She does have a wither, so your saddle's not going to slide left or right. And it is something for the saddle to go between. Knees and hocks low to the ground. Why don't you spin her around so we can see the cook's ass?
Oh, you want me?
They are meant to have like a really strong back end. This mare has a really excellent second thigh. She's very strong. And she's temperament as well, the same as the Connie. She has an absolutely beautiful temperament. Really laid back and easygoing, but still athletic, etc.
I'll walk up.
So, just like the Connie and the Fell in the show ring, everybody walks around first and the judge gets a first impression. Then they pull in a general lineup and then you do an individual show. So if I were judging this class, I'd stand directly behind him and I'd want to see the mare tracking straight and landing straight. I'd want to see a walk or trot. You're supposed to walk fast.
There I go, doing my own.
No, but walk and then turn around.
Doing my own thing again.
Run, Penny, run!
So, you want the whole limb traveling in a straight line, because that, on one hand, it shows that your conformation is straight, and any deviation is going to cause stress down the limb, and it's not going to stay sound.
Now you're going to make me trot that and back.
You trot up and trot back.
Add my shredders.
And not just the foot, but we want to see the whole limb and line. I don't want like her knees travel straight, her hocks follow her knees. We don't want any like deviation.
That's how I feel.
It's worth mentioning in the drafts the size as well. The breed standard is 15.2 to 17 hands, 16.2? 17 hands. But there are variations both below and above. This, this mare, in my opinion, would be a very classic example of an Irish Draught mare, size-wise and type-wise. She's big enough that she can carry anyone all day long, but she's not so massive that you can't fit rugs or saddles or tack or anything. And small horses do generally tend to stay sound longer, especially when you're as rigorous with conformation.
And you do come off on the Huntingfield, it's a bit easier to get back on.
Get back on it.
She's 15.3. It's hard to tell from here. How big is she?
She might be 16 hands now, but I wouldn't say over 16 hands.
I'm sorry, how old did you say she is?
She'll be 8 this summer.
Very nice.
Does anyone have any questions on?
So I've been with this breed not quite as long as you, but for a little while, and there seems to be, there's like the more traditional type and then the more modern sporty type. With here, we end up seeing really whatever genetics are available to us, right? Where it's much more limited. Are you seeing? Are there still preservationists? Are people still moving towards modern sport? Is it 50-50? How are things moving?
This, but I don't think that modern or traditional as a label even works. You can go back to the 60s, 50s, 40s. There were always different types. There was never one
Well, there were
type.
longer mares with flatter shoulders, and that towed in, that walked in the line that they were doing. I mean, it's more.
If you look at the
that
dynamics
type.
of the country, like, and you really speak to different breeders around Ireland, and this is my view, there would have always been slightly different types. Like there have been some studies done. As you got closer to big cities, you were seeing slightly bigger animals. If you got down to the west coast of Ireland,
Smaller.
you might see something smaller. There's some argument to what was available in those cities. They were bred, obviously, and other things had to be introduced to make up the breed. So I've heard some people say closer to the cities you had the bigger drays, so you'd have bigger horses sitting there. But also the land in Ireland. I mean, these horses had to work different parts of Ireland, and anyone that's travelled those regions for a very small country, the terrain is completely different in different areas. So it's always been an argument on the type, the traditional, the modern, and so on, so on. But that's again where breed standards come back in. They are a guideline to what it should be, but there is diversity within that type. So I'm a great believer in there's always been a diverse type. If you take a lot of the pictures that you see back in the early days, the black and white pictures, quite often me and Sarah will change some of ours to black and white. You could slip them in.
They're very similar.
And you'd have trouble noticing the difference. So again, I think there's always been type, and I think it's, I don't know, I mean, it's a debate.
But then also, what's successful in the show ring depends on what's showing that year.
That's
what
true.
was popular that year, what's in the show ring. So it's well, that stallion had 3 times as many covering as anything else. It's not always reflective of what is, the show ring is just what's there to begin with.
So when you go on and you learn to judge versus the inspection, so inspection should never be considered like judging. When you're judging a class, you're judging the animals that are presented in front of you that day, usually against the breed standards, but you can only judge what's put in front of you. So, and someone's got to get first place and someone's got to go down the line. In inspections, you're looking at it completely different. You are doing that purely on the breed standards and the horse in front of you as an individual. So that's what separates it out. The show ring, like Sarah said, unfortunately will always play a part on what people breed. So then it starts to affect what's brought forward for inspections in years to come. So that's why we're big advocates of the inspection process, whichever one ends up being in place, is because they are being looked at there and then for breeding purposes. What can they offer the breed going forward? And that doesn't cross over all the way to the showing side of it.
Well, I guess kind of more specifically, maybe I didn't clarify, but
It's a good question.
For example, like with the quarter horse people, there's the foundation, and the Morgan people, there's the foundation Morgans. And you're not going to see a foundation Morgan in a Morgan show ring, but they have a very tight group of people that support them and buyers that want that kind. I just didn't know if maybe there were different, if most were show forward and show centered, or if there is, over there a different little group of foundation.
It's super show-centered because they have the classes.
So you might as well go.
Here, we have to event them or do dressage or show jump them. So we're looking for something more athletic, aren't we? I mean, at the end of the day, that's what the market's asking for. But there, they have showing, and showing is so much conformation and movement. So, but again, they have exponentially more horses. So
Yeah, that's kind of
to be more tight.
what I was wondering.
I think it's just, because we're a rare breed, it's much easier for that to coexist. Like that mare would succeed in showing and dressage and be considered a foundation type mare. And the Irish hold onto their horse really tight, so
there's not really a chink in the armor for that type to ever be de-emphasized, to not be valued. In fact, that's mainly what they fight over, isn't it? That, these traditional ones aren't getting the airtime they should, but they're really adamant about that. Right, so we have the 3 examples of native ponies to
England, Ireland, and Ireland.
So the reason to kind of bring them in together is, as I say, the breed characteristics in many ways are similar, yet they're all so different. But kind of just to see how you guys feel when you see them together, there's also a lot in common. Maybe hidden behind hair, but when we start talking about the short cannon bones, good circumference of bone, strong limbs, straight movement, good shoulders, workmanlike attitude, they're actually not as dissimilar as one would think. And when we were crossing over from a world of Irish Draughts and then judging various other breeds, it isn't that hard for us then to cross over to selecting fails or something else, because it all came down to taking that confirmation and applying it to the breed standards. And so it was we were just talking about, should we bring them back in again together? But we thought it might be interesting for you guys to look and see that they actually are quite similar, weirdly enough.
This is wonderful.
So the next one we're going to bring into you guys is when we take the Irish Draught and we cross it. Obviously the Connemara does the same, and we'll explain that.